And today's challenge is going to be doing something that I wish I would have done many years ago whenever I first lifted my Jeep. I did a budget rough country lift, and it did not include a modified link, an adjustable link here to adjust the front end. This particular link that goes from this ball joint here down to this this bolt-on point here is what holds your axle centered in the vehicle. You can see there are two holes here. This is an old trick for cheap Jeepers. This is where it started life. It was over here whenever it was at the standard height. I had read about the option of just drilling another hole which moves the axle the right direction. It compensates for the amount of lift, because as you lift the Jeep, all these links change positions and it pulls the axle one way or another. So this compensates, but you just have to take your best guess as to where it is. I used common wisdom. It was close. I've been driving it for many tens of thousands of miles this way, but it's never been perfect, so it's time to fix that. Okay, I'm going to be using this flat edge here, and I'm going to be holding it by the edges here so it hangs straight down. And basically that's about it. And you can see where the fender lip comes to. It comes to the outer edge, the outmost edge of these outmost ridges here. Let's now head over to the other side, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out this is going to end up considerably farther inside. So that's about where we're at. Okay, so we missed by about an inch. That's just not going to do anymore, folks. So let's see how we fix this. All right, this is the solution, folks. It's a replacement. The difference being that this end is actually a threaded rod to adjust it like a steering tie rod. Interestingly, it's reverse threaded. It doesn't really matter, but I'm sure there's a reason for that. Got a nice solid jam nut on it. So we just have to get the old one out for the first step. Okay, and this one, for whatever reason, I don't remember if it was I just didn't have a cotter pin or the new link I put in wasn't a cotter pin style, but at any rate, I used two castle nuts, and the second one being a jam nut to keep it in place. There are several ways to do that, folks. That's one of them. Not that I recommend it. My lawyer says don't try this at home, kids. So let me just crank this off and get this out of there. All right, now if you've got a cotter pin in there, you'll have to straighten it out and pull it out, which it's a tight space that can be pretty difficult. Worst case, you just work it and you snap it off, and then you just put a big honking breaker bar and a socket on it, and you just twist it off. It'll come out. So I'm just gonna. This one obviously doesn't have a cotter pin in it, so I'm just gonna remove it. It's a 19 millimeter. If that may be different from your vehicle, but it's a starting point. Okay, where it goes through this this bracket here, it's a taper. It's a typical ball joint style taper. So the normal way to release one of those is to hit the chunk of metal it goes through. Very often that will shock the interface between the two, and release it. It's not going to work this time, folks. Okay, I can use a pickle fork. That'll take that right out without any doubt at all. I'm going to try to save it by using this tool here, a very handy ball joint separator that uses leverage to get the job done. And the trick is you slide it under between the dust cover and the metal it's going through, and the thought is that this top okay, and the top lever will push down on the taper where it comes through. So if that actually works, just cranking this down, there we go, we're snug. Now I just have to get a wrench on it. Okay, apply some torque. And that's all it took. So, should be loose. I can go ahead and use this to back the tool off, get it out of the way. And we should be good and loose now. Okay, the other end is this, is held on by this 15mm bolt that runs through this housing and is attached to a nut that's connected to this. It's a flag nut. It's got a tail on it, so you can put it up into place blindly through this slot that's under here. So basically, you just have to break this loose. I expect it to be good and tight. So I'll just use a little force multiplier here, and once I get it loose, I'll go the easy route. Okay, there's that flag nut I was telling you about, and that's out. So at this point, you should be able to pull that end out, and the other end is loose and just needs to be pried out a little bit, I suspect. Okay, the other end's still stuck a little bit, so I'm going to give it another push. Yeah, that got it. All right, the first thing I'm going to notice is that the rods are quite differently shaped, actually. Now, I suspect that's probably because this one is designed for a lift of anywhere from 1.5 to 4.5 inches. I've got about 3 inches of lift. This one was actually a stock style bar, so I'm suspecting that's really the difference. There's really quite a bit of room under there. I suspect it'll work out, but at any rate, the first thing I'm going to do is adjust the new one approximately where I suspect it needs to be. Now, two things have to happen. One, I'm going to use the original hole, so that means make the whole rod a little bit longer, unscrew it. The second thing is I need to pull the axle to the driver's side to the left, which means I need to make it shorter than the original. So put the two together, and I suspect if I bolt the original into make it the same length as the original connected the rod and bolt it into the original hole, I should be pretty close, but the beauty of it is I should be able to adjust it easily enough either way. So let me just start getting it placed in and see how it fits. And one thing to notice about this, it's got a special jam nut that goes on that doesn't really require you can feel it gets really tight. It's the way it's designed so that when you tighten it down, it really hangs onto the threads. I might put a little bit of blue Loctite on it, just belts and suspenders thing, but either one, it's a perfectly good method for holding the nut in place. Finger tight, and then get in and work on getting it fully tight. Okay, this particular nut is an 18, so just a matter of turning it on nice and tight. Now comes one of the trickier parts. Since this wheel was sticking out further, or the body was too far towards this side, what I need to do is pull the body toward that side of the axle. So to that end, I have put in a come along. It shouldn't take a whole lot of tension to do this. So luckily I've got this set up for towing behind the RV, so I've got a nice solid attachment point here. basically what you want to do is just hook on anything connected to the axle, to anything connected to the body, and pull. It shouldn't take a ridiculous amount of tension to move it over where you need it. So I'm just going to play with it a little bit until I get it centered, and we'll check it out and see where we're at. All right, and using my original methodology, hanging it down vertically, the straight edge is about just a little bit inside the inner cup. In other words, not the outer tread here, but the inner one. I'm coming just like that much from the outer edge of the tread. We walk around to the other side, measure it the same way. And it's essentially identical. It could be 1/8 of an inch off. I'm not going to worry about that. This is a Jeep, and it's been probably 1 inch off for the last 50,000 miles. So that's pretty dang close. Now let's see where our track bar ended up. Okay, that is where we are. Now, thing is, if this was a perfect world, I'd be able to just pull the track bar down and twist it. Just turn it to get the extension I need until it matches up with one hole or the other. Either one's fine. Unfortunately, because of the shape of this track bar, it just will not turn. So what I'm going to do instead is try to get a little bit scientific here. Let's see, I'll use millimeters just because it's a little easier to work with. Basically, I'm looking for the center of that hole to the center of where I am, and I've got exactly just, I'm going to call it 2.4 centimeters or 24 millimeters, which is just under 1 inch if I use this end of the scale. So you can see, oh, yeah, that's about just under 1 inch. It's 7/8 of an inch, or maybe let's call it 23 millimeters. So I've got to lengthen this bar 23 millimeters. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to pull it out to do it, but I should only have to make one adjustment if I do it correctly. So let's get that done. Okay, folks, and I did break this loose. I did it without the camera rolling in case it didn't work out, and I hate to videotape myself saying bad words. So now I just have to remove the the nut the rest of the way and get the bar out and lengthen it by about 23 millimeters. So again, 18 millimeter, and turn it out. All right, I've used the jam nut as my starting point, and what I want to do is turn it out 23 millimeters. So to that, I'm going to basically start backing it out, which is confusingly backwards threaded here. So that's about 1 inch, so I'm guessing something close to that. That's short. Okay. Whoops. That's about 20. And that's just about 23. So I believe that's going to be pretty good. Again, these backwards hardware is always weird. Now I just have to get this aligned, and it may be 1 millimeter or 2 off, but I got to get it aligned so that the taper is pointed the right direction whenever I install it. And yes, I am going to add another little bit of blue Loctite, especially since I've had this nut off once. That's it's still going to be fine, but that just gives it a little bit of extra margin. So now let me get this back in there, And before I really tighten it down, I'm going to check the length, make sure there's no further adjustments necessary. Okay. That end is in. Not tightened up, but I'll be able to push it into place and see if we got the distance right. So I can tell you it's probably gonna be plenty close. Let me give a little love tap to this end. And that looks pretty good, folks. So I can make that work. All right, I'm gonna use a screwdriver-like tool to try to get the alignment of the bar here correct, so that the bolt will go through. There it goes. Okay, just needed a little twist, and now I can get my flag nut into place, hold it up. You see the offset is actually designed for this particular location, so let me get that in there. Okay, that's connected. Now back over to continue torquing down the other end here. Alright, and the final touch, I'll crank down the lock nut here so nothing in there moves. Alright, that should be good. Alright, now I just got to finish up torquing down the 15 millimeter that holds the other end down, put my, my connecting bar on, and I'm good to go. Okay, the come-along's out. We're all buttoned back together, cotter pin in, everything torqued to spec. Everything's nice, snug, and tight. And better yet, if we take a walk around and check out the way the tires fit now, they're actually essentially dead center. So I'd say that's a job well done. So improve the Jeep after all these years.